Welcome to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast, where we explore the future and what this means for your leadership. We ask the big questions. What's happening on the horizon? What does this mean for us? And most importantly, what skills do I need now for leadership of the future? It's time to explore. Let's go.
Hey there, it's Zoe Routh, your friendly neighborhood Canadian-Australian leadership futurist, and we're here to talk about digital business transformation. What? What do you say? Well, businesses need to transform because the landscape has radically changed. How? How might we do such a thing? Because it does seem like such a big thing, and it is. Well, my guest today is Kamales Lardi. She is an author of The Human Side of Digital Business Transformation. She is listed as one of the top 100 thought leaders in digital transformation, and she is fabulous. And we take a deep dive into what is digital transformation, what is blockchain, what the amazing things we can do with artificial intelligence these days, and what it means for leadership. So, on with the show. So, all the way from Zurich, Switzerland, welcome to the show, Kamales Lardi.
Thank you so much for having me, Zoe. It's a pleasure to be here today.
Yeah, and very exciting that you're all the way from Switzerland. We haven't had a Swiss person on the show before. What is your origin story? How did you get to where you are now?
So I am actually Malaysian. I'm a Malaysian Indian, and I grew up in Southeast Asia. And basically my story was I ended up in the tech field purely by chance. After my, as I was looking for a university degree, I didn't have any particular interest. And then I saw, computing and information systems, that sounds exciting. And this was back in the mid-90s, right, when tech wasn't that famous yet. And I had quite a lot of people back then try to steer me to more women-friendly career paths. And so
what are women-friendly career paths? I'm curious.
Marketing, HR, those kinds of topics. And I think that was one of the reasons I pushed back completely. And I said, no, I'm going into tech. And I found that I was quite suited for the tech industry because I loved computational thinking, structured problem solving, analytics, and I loved programming. And so that was the start of my career really in the kind of tech field, hardcore coding, programming. And I went into my first job. I was actually poached by Accenture back then. They were Anderson Consulting. And I found that I absolutely loved this crossroads between business and tech, business application and tech, and the whole consulting field where I had the opportunity to really work with companies from across industries, across regions, different parts of business functions within the organization. And it was really quite exciting to get that breadth of experience in how tech could transform businesses. I ended up in Switzerland because I decided to come over to the UK to do a MBA. So I was very hardcore tech and I wanted to get more knowledge and experience in the business side of things, and went into an MBA program, met my very Swiss husband, and ended up here in Zurich, Switzerland. So I've been here now for about 18 years.
Oh, fantastic. And do you speak all the languages of the Swiss, the French, the German, the English? Well, you obviously speak English.
I wish you'd have asked me about coding languages instead of people language. No, I do speak German, and in Switzerland they speak Swiss German, which is quite different from High German. I do understand a lot of Swiss German. Most people here in the business side do actually speak English, so that's our business language, which is very fortunate for me. French I would find really challenging. Italian is a very emotional language. So they do have 4 different official languages in Switzerland. The 4th one being Romansh, which is not very well known here. About 50,000 people speak it. So it is a very exciting place to be because it does give me access to the rest of Europe. It's fairly central, and it's over the last decade I've been running my own consultancy, which allowed me to kind of travel through Europe and really kind of get to know different industries and companies. And I've also started working quite a lot with the Middle East. I've worked with companies in Africa, in Asia. So I absolutely love that opportunity that I've had to kind of cover different regions and gain different experiences from those engagements, basically.
Sounds wonderful. And I love how hardcore tech and transformation is the theme with which allows you to travel the world and meet all these different companies. So let's dive into that actually, because it's the topic of your latest book, technology as a driver for transformation. Why, first of all, why do businesses need to transform? Sounds like a basic question, but I think an important one.
So this is actually, I think, one of the basic elements that many business leaders need to understand. And I think it's starting to sink in a lot more, particularly after we had the COVID lockdowns. The traditional rules and assumptions of business is just not applicable anymore. We've shifted away from these traditional rules and assumptions. The traditional ways that businesses use to identify their target audiences, engage with their customers and markets, develop products and services, as well as the kinds of approaches they would use to manage the business and to manage people within the organizations, the kinds of business models that are out there. All of these have been completely displaced by technology over the last 15, 20 years. The marketplace is completely different. If I give you an example, traditionally companies used to compete with peer companies within their industries. They were within their industry boundaries. They would compete with other organizations of similar sizes offering similar products and services within their industry. Industry boundaries today have been obliterated by tech companies and digitally based companies. You've got tech companies that are entering financial services, healthcare, pharma, and it kind of video streaming and broadcasting, and basically not just tech companies, startups as well have created a whole new competitive landscape. We're seeing new startup companies start their business on day one getting access to a global marketplace of customers simply because they are online and they are able to use these digital channels to access people across the globe, across regions. So these traditional regional boundaries are also not relevant anymore. And we're seeing these companies as well cross. So traditional companies, for example, would traditionally look at having a physical presence in a certain location if they want to expand into a market. Whereas digitally based companies today can expand into pretty much any region and market without having a physical presence. So these traditional rules and assumptions of how we connect and how we engage with companies, they're all changing based on the technologies that are available to us. We've got as well consumers who are adopting technology almost as quickly as they're being put out there in the market. People are becoming very digitally savvy. They're using digital and online platforms for acquisitions, for interactions, for engagements, for crowdsourcing, for peer-to-peer share economies. The marketplace is different. And this is why companies need to transform the way they do things in order to ensure that they will survive and thrive in the digital economy.
So I've got a metaphor that's coming up for me, and I just want to road test it with you in terms of how the shifts are changing in the marketplace for businesses. So the way that you described it, that companies, you would say, this is my business and this is my market. It's like I'm a unicycle. I just go in one direction. I compete with other people on a unicycle. Technology has come on board, and all of a sudden you're not competing against other unicycles. You're competing against tricycles, one that have a lead wheel of technology, and then another wheel, which might be in your sector. Let's say it was pharmaceuticals. So you have technology as the lead wheel, pharmaceuticals is another one, and platform access, I'm guessing, I'm just making this up now, as the third wheel. How does that sit as a metaphor? Does it kind of capture what you're after, Kamales?
Absolutely. And, I would maybe venture another metaphor that could help people envision the acceleration that technology could provide within business. So if you imagine your traditional business is kind of like a little fishing boat, that's going along on the sea. You're fishing, and every time you catch something, you have to go back into dock your boat and sell whatever you've caught for the day. Now, technology-based companies or companies that are digitally savvy and know how to use tech, they're like this, I forget the name, but those ships where you have the Air Force planes on them.
Oh, yeah.
And, the big ships that provide the platforms for Air Force planes to kind of lift off these aircraft holders on the ship. So they provide this massive basis on the sea, and you have Air Force planes lifting off of that and just flying anywhere across the globe. So you're literally competing. The exponential scale and growth that tech can allow a company is at that level today. Companies that are able, if I give you another example, a startup today could use generative AI platforms and tools to create a website within 30 seconds, to create a business idea, a full-blown business plan within an hour, to create an entire branding concept, logos, imaging, corporate identity, all of that on the platform. So within a day, span of a day, you could set up an entire business environment. You could set that up in a day, and you also have AI-based platforms that are able to provide lead generation, identify your customer base, create your marketing strategy, create your product base, all of that within a day. And you are basically jumping over a ton of steps that traditional companies spend years and years building up. Capabilities that are people-based, that are kind of... So I find the marketplace accelerating at such a pace. But this is the catch, and this is the trigger for why I wrote the book, The Human Side of Digital Business Transformation. In this noisy, extremely overcrowded, accelerated digital environment, how does a company stand out among its competition? The best way to stand out is to create human connection. That's where you're going to stand out. When you're able to utilize these human connections, these moments of truth, these emotional triggers, touch points to people that create lasting memories and lasting experiences, that's where you're going to win in the digital economy.
Kamales, that was fantastic. I love your metaphor. It's way better than mine. So I got the unicycle and you've got the fishing boat and the big battle cruiser. I'm like, yes.
Battle cruiser, that's the one. Exactly.
I don't know. Is that the right term? I don't know. Big boats.
But you know what I'm talking about, the big boats.
Of course. Absolutely. I just think Tom Cruise and Maverick on the big battleships. Great metaphor. And really exciting what you described, the AI-powered technologies that can help us build a business from scratch in less than a day instead of spending hours and thousands of dollars on consultants to help you. I do actually want to ask you technical ones. I'm like, what are the AI lead generating tools, the AI tools that can help you with lead generation and marketing? I mean, is there a specific platform? This is like totally self-serving now. Could you?
There are tons. I mean, with the media, sometimes we do tend to be pushed into certain focus areas, right? So at the beginning of this year, there was so much noise about ChatGPT, and that's still happening. But if you really look at the generative AI landscape, there are thousands of tools out there that are fit for purpose. ChatGPT obviously does quite a lot, and it's quite extraordinary once you start really. I use it on a daily basis. It's really interesting to learn and develop, and I love learning, especially in the field that we're in. I think it's a constant learning. Every day there's something new out there. But there are platforms. So there's the ones that are up and coming in the next couple of months is going to be things like Baby GPT, or I forget the name, but Baby GPT is a really good example where you don't have to. So ChatGPT, you have to put in prompts in order to get the responses you want. Tools like Baby GPT, they actually allow you to, or they do the prompting themselves, right? So it takes that prompt need away. So you provide what your needs are, and it kind of tells you how it can generate. So it becomes really a very virtual, intelligent assistant for any individual or organization. So I find this quite exciting. There are platforms where you can go and test them out already today. There's another platform, and I'm happy to kind of, if listeners want to connect, I'm happy to share some tools and some names of these platforms. But there's another one that I use particularly where you can actually go in and create a virtual team for yourself. So you don't have to hire an accountant, you don't have to hire a social media manager, a search engine optimization expert, a legal expert. You can pick and choose these team of experts, and they're all kind of like ChatGPT virtual avatars. And you go in and you pretty much ask the platform, any question you want. Let's say I have a legal question, I type it in, and they provide me quite an intelligent set of responses. So I can create my virtual team of virtual people within this space that provides me fairly intelligent responses.
So this is like a series of chatbots essentially that have particular expertise that you can assemble. So instead of a panel of human experts. You've got this digital experts that are specifically trained on law or finance or whatever.
Exactly.
That is so awesome. Oh my God.
That is pretty awesome. And, they're applying such technologies across so many different areas. We're seeing such virtual, I think there's a platform called Replica, which is a mobile app as well, where you can actually it becomes a virtual friend. So you have an avatar that develops itself and has conversations with you. So the more conversations you have with it, the more it engages with you. And this is also something that could support with mental health awareness and kind of providing this additional support for people who are lonely or in kind of marginalized environments and so on. So I find it quite exciting. I'm a technology optimist, and I see the huge benefit and potential for humankind if we utilize technology in the right way. That's the catch.
Hey, it's Zoe. If you're enjoying these leadership insights, join us in the Amplifiers Academy. It's bite-sized leadership development through self-paced videos and exercises, templates, checklists, resources, and an online community to connect with other leaders. It's Amplifiers Academy, your gateway to better, stronger leadership. See you there. There's two elements of our conversation I want to highlight. And yes, using it in the right way, that's a big sort of asterisk next to it, because there's the different pathways we could go down with this. And the second one is just picking up with a really important statement that you said previously, is that the way to stand out in this AI-fueled mega fast factory of business and opportunity is the human connection piece. And I think that's a really important component to it. So yeah, we might be able to set up a business in a day and have our virtual assistants doing it. It's so that we can actually do belly to belly connection with other humans and develop better relationships. So we can clean up all the friction that we have in setting up enterprises that are of service to others. And I think that's pretty exciting, actually. People are pretty quick to forget about all that stuff as they get bamboozled by all the technology opportunity and the associated learning that needs to happen as we go hand in hand down that journey. I think that's one of the obstacles to digital transformation. I want to check that with you as well, is that people just get overwhelmed. Like, there's so much going on. Where do you start? And what does it mean for me? And how much do I need to change my practices? So is that an obstacle? Do you say this overwhelm with, like, there's so much, how do I start?
I think there are several elements to it. One of the biggest obstacles I feel exists in the market for digital transformation is a misconception of what it is exactly. There's a lot of focus for organizations and for business leaders on the digital side of digital transformation. So what technology should I be using? There's so much out in the market. Almost on a daily basis, we're seeing breakthrough technologies come out, right? Something's impacting the market almost every day. So where should I put my limited investments, limited resources? Where should I put my focus? And within a couple of weeks, something else is going to hit the market. So there's so much focus on the tech part of it. And within organizations, when I work with companies, what I do find is there's a lot of focus on the implementation of the tech. So a start date, an end date, a tech project where you have to roll out a certain technology and you see certain outcomes. Over 70% of digital transformation efforts fail because of the wrong focus, or because it either fails or falls short of delivering what the intention was, simply because there was a wrong focus on what it is exactly. Digital transformation is truly an organization-wide change that leverages technology. So the technology part is the enabler. The transformation part is really the key. And that involves looking at, how do I upskill people? Who are the right people to have within the organization? How should they be structured? What kind of processes should I have in place? How do these processes support the tech and the people? What kind of success measures should I be looking at as an organization? How do I engage with my customer base? Where they are, which channels they're using. What is this value proposition in the market? What could my potential revenue source be? Is there a shift that's needed in my business model? Is my current business model fit for the future? All of these are kinds of questions that we need to still be asking outside of that kind of tech implementation question. So it's really the transformation of your organization for the future environment. And here, one of the biggest barriers and the biggest challenge is always the people element, the lack of focus on getting people on board. So this includes your own employees and management teams providing the right support and structure and the right kind of advocacy for the technology and the solutions, the people within your organization utilizing the technologies in the right way, and advocating for that technology as well. And advocacy is a big part of transformation. Not only am I going to use the tech, I'm going to use it in the right way, and I'm going to tell others that I'm using it in the right way. And that's when technology really becomes, adopted and it becomes successful in any environment. There's so little focus as well on the external part of your company. So this includes your customer base, right? Making sure that you're building something that your customers actually need and will use, that solves a problem or a situation for the customer. And bringing in the right partnerships, right? Collaborators, service providers, engaging with this entire ecosystem of people. And this is the core of what I try to put forward as a key message in the book. Companies cannot be an island. You're not going to be surviving on your own within the digital economy, but you need to create an ecosystem of players that are working together for this digital future. And that's when you can succeed and really thrive in the future.
So Kamales, I don't think that made it any less overwhelming. It's the tech is one side of overwhelm because there's so much. And the way that you described it is actually, forget the tech, that's one component of it. It's actually a whole reinvention of who we are, what we're doing, and how we show up in service to customers who have a problem. So it's back to like fundamentals of what we're doing in business. And I think that's pretty confronting, actually, because when you've been doing something for the last 30, 40 years, to say, hang on a minute, let's just look at ourselves and see, is what we've been doing still important, valuable? And that can be pretty confronting because we might go, no, we're not.
I think that is confronting. And with any journey, especially any transformative journey, it is something that, you need to kind of almost put a mirror up to yourself as a leader and as an organization to understand what's happening. But this is what I try to break down in the book as well. It's not just about, this overwhelming journey organizations need to go through, but let's break it down into simpler parts. So within the book, I have a framework that I've utilized quite a few times, numerous times actually, with different companies across the globe, different industries. And it allows organizations to break transformation down into smaller bits, so building blocks, I would say, where you can address the most critical building block first. And let's remember, this is an evolution, it's a journey, it's a marathon, it's not a sprint. And you want to see long-term sustainable change and long-term sustainable outcomes for your company. So let's break them down into manageable pieces. So the building blocks include 4 elements: customer experience design, products and services, people, process, and organization, as well as business models. Over this entire journey or evolution, companies will eventually address all of the building blocks. But within each of those spaces, you can decide where you need to focus your priority. It could be that you have a massive challenge addressing a new customer base, a digital customer base in the market, and you have lots of competition that are targeting your customer base. So let's address that building block first. And that the framework in the book takes you through how you can address parts of these building blocks without getting overwhelmed. And it really is an evolution in the sense that as you develop and as you prepare solutions and implement solutions and initiatives, you start addressing other building blocks and you start gaining more knowledge. And I'm a big advocate for this. I think it's very important for organizations to build knowledge internally, to build capabilities and skills internally, and not depend fully on kind of external resources and so on, provide expertise, guidance, but over time, building those capabilities in your own company, making sure that you are continuously learning and growing and developing.
That's excellent. And I like the idea of your book as a step-by-step, bite-sized piece approach to this. And it kind of helps clear up the myth that people might naively approach the opportunities as blockchain. How do we incorporate that into the business? Or AI, quick. How are we going to build that into the business? And that's sort of like the wrong way. It's the bottom of the pyramid instead of starting at the top and working, or actually let's change the metaphor. It's like one of the bricks in the middle of the pyramid instead of building the platform and the foundations first. So that's really helpful. So let's actually talk about some of these massive technologies that could be liberating if we do our big scoping first of what's in the ecosystem, what's going on with our customer, how can we show up, and so on. We get to the point where we're looking at different levers to pull. Blockchain. I know you're a big supporter of it. What the heck is it? I mean, I feel like it's an emerging technology in terms of people's awareness. It's been around for a while, but what is it?
So blockchain technology, as you said, it's been around for a while. And, oftentimes, and even now, it's been around since 2009, if I'm not mistaken. But even now, we have people who are in the business environment who still think blockchain is synonymous with cryptocurrencies. And, blockchain, yes, it was initially developed as the ledger system, the digital ledger system for Bitcoin. But since then, the applications, the potential use cases, the technology itself has developed significantly over the years. And if I can kind of create describe in historically how blockchain differs from other types of ledgers. So we've always used ledgers in the business environment. And ledgers were initially used to kind of secure trust and record transactions of value, right? So if I was exchanging something with another person, I wanted a way to record that to make sure that I can trust this person is agreeing with the exchange that we've had. And as our business environments grew, beyond barter systems into kind of businesses, and as we started to expand into more complex environments and businesses across regions, across countries, and so on, our ledger systems became more complex as well, the way we recorded our transactions of value. And as they became more complex, we needed third-party institutions such as banks and so on to record these transactions for us. And then we had multiple ledgers to record multiple transactions and more complex transactions. Now, what this created was an economic environment where there was a lot of dependency on these third-party institutions. So those institutions started to gain a lot more control. The transactions became a lot more expensive because now these institutions needed to be paid and needed to be compensated for the work, and there was so much dependency on them. So we had this very inefficient environment that was complex, expensive, and sometimes extremely slow. It would take a couple of days to transfer value between different regions, for example, or even longer. And so what happened in 2009 was we had someone named Satoshi who came up with we don't know who that is. I like to joke that, it could be a person, it could be an institution, it could even be a woman. We don't know. So I think what happened was in this environment, a new ledger system, a new basis of trust was created. And this was the blockchain environment with digital currencies. Now, since then, what's happened is there's been a lot of focus on cryptocurrencies, a lot of focus on blockchain technology being utilized in the financial space, but its application across various areas are very, very interesting and promising. It allows us to record transactions of value in a digital environment, in a peer-to-peer environment. It allows us to now freely, create a layer of free trust or easy trust between individuals, governments, institutions, without having a dependency on any third party. So I can secure trust with another person, I can transfer value directly to them. And the reason for this is because the blockchain environment allows for immutable provenance, transparency, and trust without requiring someone in between to tell me you can trust this person and you can trust that person. The system itself allows for the trust. Should I go into what blockchain specifically is or how it works? I think that might be...
Yes, please. Go for it.
So what it does is basically, it's a ledger system. It records information as blocks. That's why it's called kind of block. And each block of information, once it's created, cannot be edited, cannot be deleted, cannot be changed. So every time you create a transaction, every time you do something on the blockchain, a block of information is created. And when you do something else, the next transaction is recorded in the next block. So the previous block is then connected to the next block with a chain, and that's why it's called blockchain. So every block is connected to one another as a chain, And these chains can't be edited or updated in any way. If you do something to change something from a previous transaction, a new block of information is created. Every block has a cryptographic hash. Basically, it's like a fingerprint. Every block has its own fingerprint, which is unique. And so it allows us to identify these blocks of information. Now, what is really interesting about this environment is because you cannot change information, you can only add to it. It creates an auditable, immutable kind of environment that we can trust. So we know that there isn't someone going in and changing the information. So if I take a very simple analogy of that, a traditional database of information where we would record content or record data is like a whiteboard in an office. So anyone who has access to the office, you might need a key, the door might be open, but you can walk into that office, you can erase the whiteboard and write something else on it, right? And that's the admin access, basically. A blockchain is like a printed book. The information is printed on the pages are numbered, the book is bound together, and you have many copies of these books that many different people have, the exact same copy. Now, if I wanted to change one of these copies, I could tear out a page. I could, try to, destroy some of the pages. Someone else still has the exact same book, the exact same published copy. You won't be able to state that your changed copy is the original because there's proof that there are other people are having this. So this is the peer-to-peer environment. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And also it's like a magic book too, because if you add a page to the book it's blank pages and you add a piece of information at the end of it, all the other books get updated at the same time. Is that correct?
But everyone has to agree that your update is correct, right? So you've got to get everyone who has a copy of that book to agree, let's add a page and we agree this is valid information, and then you add the page. And if you're not able to do that, if you want to make any changes, then you have to publish a second book that is kind of an addendum to the first book. So this is kind of the blockchain environment, right? It really creates a secure, and it's different from a central database. Now, why is this relevant? If I can give you an example of something that I have implemented in blockchain. When I was looking at, developing knowledge around blockchain, somewhere back in, 2012, 2013, I had many companies ask, what is blockchain? How can we use it? Is it applicable in the business? So I said, I'm going to deep dive into this a little bit. Let's figure out what we can do. And there was so much hype in the financial services industry. Lots of people and lots of startups in that space. So I decided to swim against the current and look at supply chain, particularly for agriculture. So the project that I developed a blockchain solution for was for palm oil. And one of the key challenges in palm oil was provenance, right? There was a question around where the palm oil was being harvested. Is that a sustainable environment? Are the employees in that plantation being, treated fairly? Are the trees being planted in legal ground? So there was lots of questions around the sustainability environment of palm oil. And so with blockchain technology, the solution that we built, and I worked on this with the Malaysian Palm Oil Association or Malaysian Palm Oil Council, and we developed a solution that really was able to identify where exactly the palm oil fruit bunches were coming from. We put in sensors in the plantations themselves. So we identified a pilot plantation where we were able to put in sensors. So every time a tree was harvested, it would automatically update. They would have a handheld device. It would automatically update the handheld device that this tree was harvested. That information would go real time into a blockchain system. And anyone within the industry, including regulators, would be able to see on a map which tree was harvested and when, by whom. So this entire information, real time, was available now online. So every handheld device was then allocated to an employee. The employee had his own barcode. So they would scan their barcode in the morning. So you knew handheld device A was allocated to Mr. A. And that person would harvest for the day, and you would see exactly which trees he was harvesting. And with this blockchain system, it made it extremely clear on a map which trees were being harvested. And so we had provenance, we had source of origin information in real time. And this information could not be edited by any one party. And it was shareable across the globe. It was available real time on a website as well as on a mobile app. And that took away this whole question around where the palm oil was coming from specifically. So we knew they were legitimate plantations that were certified as sustainable by the government. And we were able to also then track the palm oil as it went from collection points into trucks. We had sensors on the trucks, and the trucks would then drive to a refinery. And we had sensors at the refinery, so we knew exactly where it was coming from and where it went, who was driving the truck, and who was the person picking up the palm oil or the fruit bunches at the refinery. And this gave us so much transparency.
Yeah. Yeah, it really takes the whole like certified ethical company certificate, I'm thinking like a tick of some sort, to completely next level. So that it's documented, immutable, transparent proof ongoing on the internet. And I think that's hugely important. And I think this whole idea that blockchain is a vehicle for transparency in so many different ways is actually a big social transformation experience that we're heading towards. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. I agree with it. I also experienced that not every stakeholder in every industry wants that level of transparency.
No, it's easier to hide.
So that was very interesting experience to gain as well, because when, as I said, I'm a tech optimist, I see the transformative potential. And then walking into certain environments, you realize that, okay, maybe some players within the industry want to keep that level of, control, or that to kind of hide away certain elements, because obviously blockchain creates the transparency and it exposes things that are not being done in the right way, whether it's on purpose or not. And, this is very challenging for a lot of people. But the applications of blockchain go, if you think about societal transformation, it creates equality. Blockchain is being used now to provide access to banking in marginalized areas, right? So certain parts of India and certain regions, underdeveloped regions where you don't have access to physical banks and physical financial services capabilities. With a mobile device, women, for example, who in some regions were forced to provide or to give their paychecks at the end of the day to their husbands or the person running the household and didn't have financial independence. Now with the mobile device, they were able to create a bank account and have their salaries transferred into their personal bank accounts. And this is run by the blockchain. And so you have now unbanked people and people in marginalized areas gaining access to financial independence. There are certain people within different kind of communities or societies who are, if you think about traditional financial services, it is owned and run by the government. And if you have environments where the government is not serving the people, so you have activism and you have, in certain parts of the world where you have activism, if you don't have access to your finances, it's very difficult to go against the governments that whatever protests you're doing. So we have, for example, female activists in certain parts of Africa who were financed by, cryptocurrencies and by the blockchain, through the blockchain. And so this creates really opportunity, and it takes control back from the central institutions to the end user, to the people. You get control over your information, right? You can control who is allowed to see your information, where your data goes, how your data should be distributed. And these are all questions that are critical in our digital environment. There are people who are undocumented in the world. I think there are over 281 million people who are undocumented. With blockchain identity solutions, you are able to create identities. Let's say you are in a region where there's been a massive natural disaster and many people have lost their kind of documentation and identity information. You can create identities for them through the blockchain that are secure, that allows them then to create banking capabilities or financial capabilities so that they can get a job and start earning money again. So much potential. And I find this exciting. But with the caveat, though, Zoe, I think blockchain technology is still in the developing phase. There are solutions out there, but we're still developing. And, I think there's a bit of a way to go before it's ready for mass application. I think AI has probably surpassed blockchain in that sense. But the potential and the capabilities are there, and we need to keep at it.
The impact on centralized versus decentralized institutions is going to be huge. I mean, as you're talking about this, the digital identity that could be logged on a blockchain eliminates the need for things like carrying around a driver's license or carrying around a passport. So you'd all be lodged in your digital wallet and have that be immutable, unchangeable, and accessible to you. So whole bunches of infrastructure will become perhaps obsolete or at least transformed in some way, shape or other. One of the things I've noted in the research that I've been doing around these emerging technologies and the intersection of them, so artificial intelligence and blockchain, you described both of those trends kind of blending together, whether it's the AI generative AI tools where you can have your virtual team to help you build a business in a day, and then blockchain to help you do decentralized business peer-to-peer. Is the decentralization aspect of this is going to be huge. And power to the people, I think, is really what the theme is that I'm hearing emerging from all these technologies, is that people will become more empowered, whether it's people who didn't have banking abilities or people who didn't have documents, as you say. All of a sudden they can be autonomous and they can be independent and they have access to information and economic power. And that's across the globe. That's going to be a huge rise of an economic engine being accessed for the first time. And do you have any sense of what the ripple effect of that could be?
It could be very transformative. I think what we're looking at potentially is a shift in the way countries are run, a shift in the way institutions are run. There could be, if you imagine, right, you mentioned traveling, like you don't have to carry your passport around. So imagine if you have this blockchain environment where users own their identity and identity information. I would not need to have to carry any documentation. I could travel country to country. I could enter a airport without even a ticket, really, because I could actually buy that ticket and have that, digitally purchase it and have that in my blockchain environment on my digital wallet. I could walk into the airport. I could go straight to the plane. I wouldn't have to have immigration checks because with my phone, there could be sensor technologies that would pick up identity straight away and automatically sense from my digital device my ticket number and all of that. I could go straight to the gate. I could sit down in a plane, travel to the next country, walk right into the next country because my information is sent. So I'm kind of imagining how easy and simple things could be, right, if we had such an environment. So this means free travel across regions. I think this could be really exciting. And if you think about potential, if I go to another region or a country and I fall sick, I want to visit the NHS in England or the government hospital somewhere else. I would have to just go in there and I could share my patient history or my medical history directly from my mobile device or my blockchain wallet directly to the doctor and petition that information so he can see a certain amount of information, but not everything. So whatever I desire him to see, him or her. And they could potentially have a look at this information, give me medical care. It would be so much simpler if we had this environment. Obviously, with this sort of potential, right? I'm going to quote Spider-Man here.
As you do.
As you do. With great power comes great responsibility. So if we're shifting this, empowering users again, shifting control back to the individual, individuals have to be educated enough, empowered enough, but also knowledgeable enough to utilize that information in their best interest. So this brings into question things like cybersecurity, data privacy, all of these elements which, we know blockchain tech could potentially provide sufficient security in that environment, but it's not 100% secure, right? Nothing is ever 100% secure, particularly when you take into account human error, which is one of the biggest challenges in the tech field. And so, there's a lot of potential, but I think we as human beings still need some way to go in terms of our learning, and we're not used to having that much control and power over our own information. And so we need to develop our own understanding of what this means and how it could be utilized. If you think about the young generation of people today who are quite comfortable sharing a lot of information online without thinking about, the level of trust in their digital space, without thinking about where that information could end up and where it could go, This could be an issue that needs to be addressed. The second topic is the environments that we're in, the infrastructure isn't ready for this. As we said earlier, we need an ecosystem. We don't have the infrastructure, we don't have the kind of technology around us, we don't have the systems, the processes, the control checks, the quality checks around us in place in order to enable these technologies yet. Right? So this is one of the biggest challenges when a company tells me, we want to implement blockchain or we want to implement AI. The first thing I would do is look at their existing environment and infrastructure. If you want to implement AI, do you have your data strategy in place? Is your information managed in the right way? Is it clean? Is it accurate? Where are your information being sourced from? Is it credible? How is it being audited? You need to have these prerequisites in order to utilize AI technology in the best way possible. Same with blockchain. If you want to implement blockchain in a bank that has a 20, 30-year-old technology infrastructure, it's not going to work. So you need to there's some prerequisite work that needs to be done in order for these systems to be interoperable.
I agree. So it is still on the emerging side of the technologies that we need to contend with. And so there's a lot of integration stuff that needs to happen and education, as you said, that needs to happen. 2 more questions for you. The first one is leadership. So what does this mean for leadership? What kind of skills, characteristics, or values do leaders need to have in order to embrace, contend with, and deal with all these emerging technologies and opportunities for digital transformation?
I do cover this a little bit in my book around digital mindset for leadership teams. One of the biggest shifts that need to happen is abundance mindset, where leadership teams need to start thinking outside of their existing environment, outside of existing limitations. I often hear, leadership members telling me, well, this is how we've always done it. This is how it is in our company. It's not anymore. Things are changing. And I think having this abundance mindset, understanding that technology provides these exponential capabilities, your new customer base, your current and growing customer base is digitally savvy. They're looking for a different way to engage, different experiences. Your employee base is also shifting. Right, we're seeing the millennials have entered, now the Gen Zs are entering the workforce. They're demanding a different way of leading, a different experience. We are seeing quite a lot of young people looking at organizations and saying, okay, if you don't have the basic tech capabilities that I'm used to, I don't even consider working with you. Right, so this is shifting. So this abundance mindset, being open to these shifts and understanding what these shifts are. You don't have to be a technical expert, but I think a basic understanding for how technologies are impacting your business is important. It's critical. And empowering people. I don't believe every leader has to be the most knowledgeable in everything, but you need to know how to lead people who are very knowledgeable, right? So you're seeing an increase in tech knowledge coming into the workspace. How do you lead these people? How do you manage them? How do you empower them? And I think this is something that we saw during the COVID lockdowns. There was a massive shift from physically leading people to having to lead them through digital channels. And I mentored and coached many leadership people who struggled with that, right? It's a different channel, and you need to learn to motivate people differently and engage with them differently. And it means giving up control, right? You can't make 100% of all the decisions anymore. You need to have delegation, and you need to trust the environment that you're in. So these would be the two kind of areas that I would say are fairly critical. In the book, I name about 6 different characteristics. But if there were 2 that I would pick, it would be this. And probably the third I would mention is also courage and conviction.
That's a perennial one.
Yeah. You need to be bold. You need to kind of have a clear vision where you're heading as an organization in the future. And you need to have the boldness in order to drive to that direction. And of course, empathy is extremely important. I did write quite a bit about this recently. There's a need for, the more we become digital, the more things shift, the more we need to have empathy for one another and understand the fears, the uncertainties, and how do you lead people in that environment.
It circles back a little bit to what you started with, which is the human connection piece will make us stand out as businesses and as leaders. That's really fantastic. And it just plopped into my brain as you were describing the abundance mindset, unrelated, that the name of the big boat is an aircraft carrier.
aircraft carrier. There you go.
I'm sure the listeners are going, it's an aircraft carrier. They're sitting there shouting at their earbuds going, aircraft carrier, aircraft carrier. So thank you. It's finally dropped. We have a fishing boat versus an aircraft carrier. Final question. Kamales, where can people find more about you and to get your tips and insights on the web?
I am on kamaleslardi.com. My company is Lardi & Partner Consulting, so at lardiandpartner.com. And you can find the book and pretty much anywhere. I think there are Australian bookstores that carry the book as well. Amazon is definitely one, and on my website. I'm very active on LinkedIn and Twitter. And so, I'm happy to connect and engage on these channels as well. A lot of controversy going on in Twitter, so I'm happy to provoke thought there.
Whatever platform they can reach out, your preferred platform. And the full title of your book is?
The Human Side of Digital Business Transformation by Wiley, published by Wiley.
That's great. Kamales, thank you so much. That was amazing. That gives us a fantastic, wide-ranging expose on what digital transformation is, how we can go about it, some great mindset tips, and definitely a little peek into some of the technologies that can assist us along the way. Thank you so much.
Thank you as well, Zoe. It was a pleasure.
Wasn't that cool? There is so much amazing stuff happening out there. And Kamales did a great job of explaining some of the amazing technologies like blockchain. So the key takeaways and action tasks for me, for you, based on this conversation are really lean into abundance mindset. I think there is so much opportunity out there, and it's kind of mind-boggling as to what we'll be able to do within the next 5 years with AI, robotics, and blockchain all kind of emerging really quickly around us. I think the next thing you can do, number 2, is ask yourself about your business. Are you a fishing boat? Or could you become an aircraft carrier? It's a fantastic metaphor. And I think it's pretty apt, right? So why would you stay a fishing boat when you could be an aircraft carrier? Depends on what problems you're solving and who you're solving them for, which is the tip number 3. What problems are you solving and who are you solving them for? Actually, I do think there is an argument for being a fishing boat, and that's if you take the artisan route with what you are doing. And maybe it's meaningful and important to you to become a fishing boat, that human-to-human, niche, independent fishing boat. Depends on what you want to be doing in terms of serving and creating, etc. Or do you want to be an aircraft carrier where you can go bigger, further, and more global? Really big, important questions for us to ask as leaders. And the third takeaway action step for you is a reflection one as well. And that can lead to lots of action, is how can we embrace radical transparency? Because it's here, it's emerging, and it's coming for us. What can we do to capitalize on that? Will we stand on an ethical platform like the palm oil customer or client that Kamales described? Are we able to say, this is all our business processes, this is how we do things, and we're going to put that on a blockchain where everybody can see it, it's immutable and unchangeable? In some ways, that's coming for us too. We'll be able to have blockchain records of things like our carbon footprint and what we're doing to be carbon neutral or carbon positive, negative, carbon negative. I think that's the way to do it. That's already emerging as one of the ways that we can actually use blockchain technology to prove that we are doing the right thing. And so the whole environmental, social impact and governance transformation and evidence that we're doing the right thing in the world will become paramount when coupled with technologies like the blockchain. In other words, we will be caught out. So why not start doing the right thing, the good thing right now? Because your business will benefit from it, the earth will benefit from it, and the communities will benefit from it. Woohoo! Riding the high horse of ethics just there. It's a huge opportunity. So don't feel like it's a big stick looming over us. It's a big opportunity. An opportunity to build a better world. And that's what we're here for, right? That's what we want to do as leaders. We believe in having a better world. We believe in having big hearts with big thinkers that make a big difference. That's why I get out of bed every day to do the work that I do. And on that note, if you are looking to build the strategic thinking and capability of your team, I would love to help you with that. It's some of my favorite work to run strategic thinking leadership workshops or to facilitate your strategy to look at how you might transform your business and make a bigger impact, whether it's on a fishing boat or on an aircraft carrier. I'm going to leave you now. I wish you well, and I look forward to hearing your thoughts on this episode and what you are taking away from the series we're doing on Fit for the Future leadership. In the meantime, you know what to do. Live well, lead well.
You've been listening to the Zoe Routh Leadership Podcast. To find out more about leadership of the future or to contact Zoe, go to zoerouth.com.